Hi, I'm Karima Brown. It's Sunday and it's time for The Fix. Welcome to this edition of The Fix, where every Sunday we hold those in power to account. We tell you what matters, how it affects you, and why you should care. The African National Congress is holding a special National Executive Committee meeting as we speak to look at several challenges facing the governing party. Large-scale corruption, the state of the economy in the time of COVID-19 are among the issues topping the agenda. This, of course, follows a series of developments starting off last Sunday with a letter from Cyril Ramaphosa to members of the African National Congress. Subsequent to that, former President Jacob Zuma has weighed in and attacked President Cyril Ramaphosa, accusing him of throwing the party under the bus. Well, let's look at what is actually being discussed at the meeting, and we are now joined by the party's Deputy Secretary General, Jessie Duarte. Jessie Duarte, thank you so much. Good morning. I understand the NEC meeting just got underway. I'm really grateful that you stepped out. I'm sitting here with the minutes of the conversation for this weekend, and among the issues that it says the NEC has discussed is, of course, the question around reaffirming that resolution of the 54th National Conference on corruption. There's been a lot of confusion on what this means exactly, specifically as it relates to whether or not people step down. Let's start with the Secretary General of the African National Congress. Last week we had a letter that said the Integrity Committee had requested a meeting with Mr. Magashule. Pule Maba, your spokesperson, said the SG had not received that letter. Can you confirm that he has received that letter and he will indeed be going to the Integrity Committee?
Well, let me start with that. Yes, the SG has received a letter from the chairperson of the Integrity Committee requesting him to come and explain a remark that he made in an interview that he had relative to him saying that he would not step down if he was accused. So I think it's fairly specific. It's not vague. And yes, he will, he will be going. He can't refuse to go. So at a time and place convenient to both, that meeting will take place.
Absolutely. Now, Jessie Duarte, there's been quite a lot of confusion on what the powers of the Integrity Committee is in relation to the NEC and how the two function. I understand that President Ramaphosa himself, when he delivered the political report to the NEC, indicated that he too has been in contact with the Integrity Committee in relation to questions that might have arisen regarding the campaign funds linked to what is known as the CR17 campaign leading up to his election as ANC president in Nasrec in 2017. Just take us through what exactly the president told the NEC and what the relationship is and the powers are of the Integrity Committee vis-à-vis the NEC.
Well, let me start with the powers of the Integrity Committee. Firstly, the Integrity Committee cannot find guilt or innocence. What it does do is it enables people to come to them when they've been accused of a wrongdoing or a misdemeanor, to explain themselves. They may make recommendations. They may say, for example, that this person, we've heard them, and they need to go through a disciplinary hearing within the organization. They may recommend that the person could be suspended, or they may even recommend expulsion. But they themselves do not have the powers to do that. So the report of the Integrity Committee is then taken to the NEC for discussion, and it's processed fairly well through officials, NWC, and so on, debated and discussed, and then action could be taken or not. So it is a space which I think people refer to it as a space where you are, which is really to defend the integrity of the ANC and also to look at political morality amongst the cadership of the ANC. And it's a good space. It's a safe space for people to go to. What is unfortunate is that you know, some of the times the outcomes are leaked and there's no opportunity to discuss them properly before they are leaked, or the letter for the SG, for instance, and I understand why Pulemabe would say the SG didn't receive the letter, was leaked to the media before the SG actually physically had a copy in his hands. So I think there's a great deal of work still to be done, and the officials will be meeting with the Integrity Committee next week. There are good people there. There are senior cadres of the movement there. It's a question of working out how we work together that really doesn't create a disturbance in terms of process, so that people can't argue against what they do.
Okay, so let's go to the president now and what he told the NEC in relation to the CR17 matter and whether he's going to the Integrity Committee.
Yes, since that was also leaked, Karima, I have to say that, yes, he did say that he intends to go. He has made contact with the Integrity Committee, and he will be presenting himself there for a discussion on the CR17 funds. And that's all that he said. There wasn't a discussion, and it was left there.
Okay, so let's come to other members of the African National Congress. There's quite a few that are implicated in corruption. Some are more than implicated. Some face criminal charges. So, for example, the former mayor of eThekwini, Ms. Zandile Gumede, there's a lot of confusion on exactly what her stepping aside means and the fact that she's still receiving a salary. Where exactly is the Zandile Gumede matter, and what exactly has the African National Congress NEC discussed? Because when I watched the PEC make that announcement, they said they're going to ask you for a uniformed process so that every member faces the same procedure. So what exactly did the NEC discuss in relation to the specifics of Zandile Gumede and the fact that she isn't just facing allegations, she's facing criminal charges in a court of law?
Okay. Karima, what the NEC hasn't done yet is to discuss that specific matter. But in general, we've discussed being consistent, the concept of consistency, because right up to now, it has been wholly inconsistent. Some people have stepped out of their positions and have stepped down from the ANC. Others have stepped down from the position that they hold, but have not stepped down from the institution in which that position is. There are two cases like that. So the ANC's 54th conference resolution is fairly, it's not a complicated one. It says that those who are convicted, already convicted of a crime, so you've gone to court, you've been given a sentence, you would have stood down a while back, you would have stood out of your position, and then you go through the disciplinary committee of the ANC to establish whether or not you can still remain a member of the ANC. Those who are simply accused of a misdemeanor by the media, by somebody else, have to present themselves to the Integrity Committee to explain their case. If their explanation is not good enough, then of course the Integrity Committee may make recommendations about a disciplinary hearing and so on. Those who have been charged but not yet convicted need to step aside from the position that they hold, which is a very different matter from asking you to remove yourself entirely from your institution. But you step aside, and Ms. Gumede did step aside.
Okay, so let me just pause there, because what exactly does stepping aside mean? So, for example, if in the case of Ms. Gumede, where the case is ongoing, does stepping aside means that she remains a member of the legislature, but she's just not active in a position, she still earns a salary? What exactly does step aside entail?
It means exactly what you've said, Karima. It means that you cannot hold a position of authority until your matter is completely concluded. And I think this is where it's not a grey area. It's actually an area of social justice as well as justice. Because in the case of Ndobe, for example, he was asked to vacate his position He was asked to vacate every position that he held everywhere in the ANC. He was falsely charged with murder, went to a court of law. The court dismissed the case. By the time that trial had finished, this particular individual had his life was basically in tatters. We have a responsibility to exercise fairness like any other person would expect to exercise fairness. But KZN did put out a message yesterday, I think on Friday. We have not discussed her matter in particular. She wasn't on the agenda. But what we've discussed is the reaffirmation of our 54th conference decision and endorsed the program of action set out in the letter of the president last week on Sunday, which is very similar.
Yeah, so if I'm supposed to understand you correctly, you are saying that stepping aside means that she cannot hold a position of authority, which means she cannot be a member of the legislature. Is that correct?
Well, she could be a member of the legislature, but she cannot perform any authoritative function in the legislature, like being the chair of a committee or none of that. And there's also her rights that need to be looked at. She herself, and I need to say this to you, Karima, when asked what happened, she'll say, each time I go to court, the investigating officer says he's not ready. Now, justice delayed is also justice denied.
Yeah.
And so if the state takes a long time to find evidence, then the state also is not assisting us in moving forward rather quickly.
Absolutely. I've actually had the law enforcement agencies on the show to talk about that. We have cases, for example, that are 4 years old, that nothing has happened. In the case of the Brian Hlongwa linked corruption when he was the MEC for health here in Gauteng, it's 9 years since that investigation concluded by law enforcement agencies, and the NPA here in the province in Gauteng has still not done anything. So you're absolutely right about that. But here's the issue. There's, of course, issues of legality, which is your court processes, but we don't just deal with issues of legality, Ms. Duarte. We also deal with political morality and ethics, right? So when you have a situation where a powerful ANC leader is accused of wrongdoing, is charged in a court of law, ethically, does it not make better sense for the African National Congress to have a position that says if that happens, the damage is so bad for the ANC in terms of people's understanding of the ANC that that person actually needs to fall on their sword? If they are vindicated, they can always come back, but that there needs to be an ethical position which needs to be distinguished from the legal court processes. And surely, as a leader of society, in your own words, you must have a higher standard of ethics for your organization and your members.
We'd like that, Karima, very much. But even in the case of other people, where we insist, look, step aside until your matter is finished. Go and stay at home. Do nothing. People argue back and say, but I'm not guilty. So you're saying I'm guilty before the fact. We would like people to step aside of their own volition. And for that reason, we believe that the step we take to say to people, go to the Integrity Commission, explain yourself. If you're not able to explain yourself very well, then in that case, matters must flow. But that's what KZN is talking about, consistency. We've been very inconsistent, frankly speaking. And we've also been inconsistent depending on who you are, who you're connected to, and what faction you belong to, and
exactly.
so on.
In fact, you're segueing right into what I want to talk about. Both the President's letter and the discussions at the NEC spoke about the crippling factionalism, and that it's actually robbed you of your own internal mechanisms to gatekeep things like political morality, things like ethics. Now, factions are a reality of all political parties, of modern political life. How do you insulate yourself from the debilitating effects of factionalism, Ms. Duarte, so much so that you take such a bad hit. You've had a hashtag that's trending, says Futsak ANC, because there is a real sense in society that people are fed up, and there's a sense that you are not in a position to self-correct. How are you going to do things differently from this NEC than before? Because there is obviously an inability to self-correct. Your mechanisms are not working the way they are. They are immersed in these factions.
For that reason, Karima, we have what I've just said to you, and I'm having this interview with you in the middle of the NEC. We're far from the end of the NEC.
Yeah.
The day is still young, but I can assure you that the three issues that we are not going to back down on is to insist on the system that we've now asked the NEC to approve, which is if you have been accused, you go to the Integrity Commission. If you've been charged, you step away from the job that you're currently in. Then if you go to court and you are convicted, you will step aside completely and leave whatever positions you have, and you will go to a DC of the ANC to determine whether you remain a member of the ANC or not. Those are the steps that are very clinical, but the ones that will indicate for us how best we move forward. It removes the factions. It removes any doubt as to who's who and who's powerful and who's not. And the point is that none of us are bigger than the ANC, and that's a fact. We have to actually submit ourselves to the rules of our constitution and also the rules of the country. The ANC cannot just avoid the fact that they are also there's a constitution of the Republic of South Africa. Those two can never be outside of, they can't clash with each other. Yes, and in terms of political morality, this is what we're asking. Okay. We're saying to people,
we're running
if you've done something wrong, go.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. But the problem is that you haven't been able to make very powerful people leave out of their own volition. You've consistently asked people to follow their conscience, but the truth is some don't have a conscience. And they know that as long as they stay in the ANC, they are still able to fight their cause and to fight the battle of their faction. And often factional interest supersedes the ethical and moral issues that the ANC is said to hold dear.
But Karima, I think if we now say to you, and you must please accept that we mean that very seriously, if you've been accused, even if you've been accused by the media, which is the main accuser in our country at the moment, right? Go to the Integrity Commission. If your facts don't accord and are not succinct, don't make sense, then the Integrity Commission will make a recommendation for you to take matters further. However, if you are charged, it's a totally different matter. The minute you are charged by a court of law or a public, the NPA, then your responsibility where you are located ends. And you then have to submit yourself to the rigors of the ANC's internal processes, which are you step aside. And after that, if you are convicted, then you leave altogether and you go to a DC to determine whether or not you are, in fact, able to be a member of the ANC. There's an ambassador whose name I'm not going to mention, but the media accused him. He was recalled from his position as an ambassador. He went through a court of law. He was found to be not guilty. Now, these are the kinds of paradoxes that make our lives very difficult. So if we can all work together, corruption is not just, let me just say this, the ANC is not a corrupt organization, but there are corrupt people in the ANC. And those are the people that we want to deal with. We also want to be sure that we don't fall into this trap of having our opposition creating a crime that we did not commit, accusing us of that crime. They have the favor of very well-heeled people in our society, and good people are removed to cut knees.
Okay,
So
I hear you.
Bad people must go.
Okay.
Bad people must go. Karima, we're not messing around.
Okay.
We're
Okay,
not messing around.
I think the
And
country will
you
find. I think the country will find comfort when we see action to those strong words that you just used. That bad people must go. We're not messing around. I think there is a great expectation that you are going to give effect to that. My time is running out because you need to go back into your meeting. Just a quick word on the mass action that's happening in Dorado Park in Johannesburg, following the killing of a young boy, Nathaniel Julius. We saw 2 police officers have been arrested by IPID on charges of murder. The president has sent his condolences to the family. You have spoken on the matter as an individual. The African National Congress hasn't said anything. Why is this?
Well, I spoke for the ANC on the matter. The matter is quite difficult and it's sad. You know, we've all been to the family. Our comrades are on the ground with the family at the moment. There are 7 siblings in that family. This child just stood outside of his door and was shot dead. It's unacceptable. Whatever happens, we are saying as the ANC, we need to know the truth. We don't want to have anybody giving us a mitigated fact. We need to know why this child was shot, who shot him, and what led to that shooting. And indeed, why was the kind of weaponry used that was used there it was a little, not just a little one, it was an uprising, but not a major uprising. Why the heavy-handedness? So, Karima, the ANC is not stepping away from this, and we certainly are interested in how the government is going to react to this.
All right, thank you so very much. That is Deputy Secretary General of the African National Congress, Jessie Duarte, stepping out of that NEC meeting, still underway. The issue of Zandile Gumede not on the table yet, so we will be keeping a very close eye on it. Still ahead, what lies behind what many calls the de-Africanization of communities of mixed heritage within the African National Congress? Stay with us.